We want change. We want change. We want change. We want change. We want a change.
Bakulu.
The sound magician. Wi-Fi on the beat, boy.
Twakupele voting atawa bomba Twakupele voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Fama leliro mufunda tawafika Nembuto tashafika Ukutula potwa misalila ifwe Mwalitula baona lebo Nomba lelo mabwela imwe Mulefwa ya tumivotere Tatwakupele voting atawa bomba Tatwakupele voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Pantuno mwaka Uya bebele Twanakanемwe Mwachira mobufi Kuya bebele Akwamulele numa Kuya bebele Mwachira mobufi Uno mwaka tulefa yabakutubombera Nocha bakwisa kuno mukuzembereka Mukutwibira mano Nga twabavotera abaya Nangu mwatupele ndalama Tulepo katatwa mivotere Nidonti kubeba Wapoka wanya Nidonti kubeba Wapoka wanya Ababina chimwe na mwekole Uko bafuma balinaba Bayi kutapiza Bala boko bafuma Bayi kutapai Bala bati bakabwela Baja chikini nena mabanu inapana kaso Wala onalebo mulabeja Ukutula potwa misalila ifwe Walitula baonalebo Nomba lelo mabwela imwe Mulefwa ya tumivotere Tatwakupele voting atawa bomba Tatwakupele voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Tawali mone voting atawa bomba Pantuno mwaka Kuya bebele Twanakanемwe Mwachira mobufi Kuya bebele Akwamulele numa Kuya bebele Mwachira mobufi Pantuno mwaka Kuya bebele Twanakanемwe Mwachira mobufi Kuya bebele Akwamulele numa Kuya bebele Mwachira mobufi Pantuno mwaka
Mailo nkava ku police headquarters for 9 hours. I've been called there by the police in connection with the statement I made demanding the burial of Edgar. Edgar is not an ordinary citizen, he's our former president. Whether we like him or not, whether we like it or not. But his body belongs to his family. He has been lying in the mortuary, frozen in a fridge for 9 months now. Because Hichilema doesn't want his family to bury him, he wants himself to bury Edgar. Edgar who was not his friend, Edgar who was not his relative. Edgar who he was not talking to, who he was at loggerheads with. Why does Hichilema want to bury Edgar himself? Leko mnove aya tushete buntu uvu. Batiro mweo wa muntu waba mukutwi. Chiola chintomfwa apulikila mulemba mukutwi. Ichi kutirwe tachumfwe ndivu. Leka banove bachitefi walefwa ya it can't be your way all the time. Pa constitution is your way, only everything is your way. Tefyo biekala mchalo. This country is not going to be a good place for any of us to live in. If it's not a good place for all of us to live in, weshyo mutima mulumendo.
Laissez-les, bana yo boss. Va SDA tu kupepela. Bakateka. We are with you.
Sorry. What?
Hakainde Ichilema nkalapo na chifundo pa mutima kwate omutima owa muntu leko munobe ayatushe yala akwana 9 months ichitumbi chakwa Edgar Lungu chichiri ku fridge ichi chimono okukaka echitumbi watwala echitumbi cha munobe ku prison for 9 months wakwata omutima wa shani nangu kukosa omutima te ifyo. Release that body so that Edgar's family can bury their loved one. Be a human being. Your actions are human. Edgar is not buried today because of you wanting his body. That's all.
Why do you want it for?
Why do you want Edgar's body that much for 9 months? Almost 9 months now. Your friend can't be buried because you are saying, no, I have to have the body. I have to bury Edgar's body the way I want. Chitumbi chobe. Do you want to eat that body? Is it your body? Is Edgar your relative? Is he your friend? Let him be buried. Kwato luse. Look at the way the family is suffering for 9 months. Bali mu funeral, bali mu mourning. Let them have a closure. Nangu kubipa omutima te ifi mu mendo. Wesho omutima kwata ko luse.
To attempt to bring the opposition together, to attempt to give them a common program, to attempt to make them commit to a national program that they can implement, to commit themselves to important things like, for example, not the amendment, but the overhaul of a new constitution. Woaka is very well known in our political circles. He's an analyst, he's an academic, is a politician and is a founder member of the movement for multi-party democracy as a movement, democracy and freedoms, and it's even against human rights. If I've offended you, I've defamed you, take me to a civilian court if your name has been defamed in any way. Don't use the police. Don't use criminal defamation. These are laws that should be put away. President Hakainde Hichilema has weaponized these laws. He has even relieved some of the laws that we haven't used in the last 30, 40 years. They are now being used against political opponents. And the new laws that he set aside, this Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act of 2025, he has imported speech offenses, especially from the repealed criminal defamation of the president. He has imported them into the cyber crimes and cyber security laws. The two laws are not about cyber crimes or cyber security. They are just essentially about speech offenses and the grave punishment that punitive measures that they offer. So the arrest of Fred Membe must be condemned in the strongest terms. He didn't do anything wrong. He just spoke to the conscience of President Hakainde Hichilema that he should let his predecessor be put to rest. There's nothing that Fred Membe has done to warrant both the lock-up, arrest and detention. He's currently detained at the police station in Chilenje. He should be given bond quickly. I have been in those places. I've been arrested 6 times. I've been taken to court 3 times. Those are not good places. They are heavily congested, you immediately come out with a terrible cough. Sometimes even with skin diseases, they are not good places, especially then to hold, political opponents, because you are offended by what they've said. If you buried the late president, you have not. So why are you offended? Just do as Fred Membe is doing. So I thought I could start with that. Then I'll invite Woaka to first give us a few remarks about the arrest of Fred Membe, and then we discuss the program that Woaka has come for. Woaka, welcome to today's program, and thank you for joining us. You must have learned of the arrest of Fred Membe. What are your views? I must have learned of the arrest of Membe. What are You are on Woaka.
Thank you very, very much, Emmanuel. It's great to engage again. I'm happy to be here.
You heard my intro about the arrest of Fred Membe. Kindly give us
Yes,
about it. Kindly give your views about.
I heard about this sad news this afternoon. It's really saddened me a lot because some of the questions that are being asked are whether or not our political environment is conducive to free, fair, and just election. And developments like this underscore that the situation is a negative, that the environment for free and fair election is being soiled continuously, including this latest situation against our comrade Dr. Fred Membe. It is very, very important to appreciate that we are really challenged to demonstrate that our institutions in the public service, law enforcement institutions, electoral institutions, judicial institutions are truly non-partisan and do not undermine the environment for free and fair elections and for the freedom of the citizens. 62 years of independence. It is a shame that the freedom of association, the freedom of speech, the freedom of movement, it cannot be taken for granted. In the last few months, I've been disturbed by noticing how many of our citizens are living in fear and in uncertainty about their freedom, uncertainties about their livelihood, uncertainty of being victims of public institutions that may threaten the enjoyment of their full civil rights and the enjoyment of their human rights. The struggle for independence and a repeat struggle to return the country to a multi-party regime was within the African aspiration that we want Africans to be free on this continent. Our enjoyment of civil rights should be second to nobody. There should be no other human beings on earth who enjoy more civil rights than ourselves. There should be no human beings in the world whose human rights are more respected than our own. as an independent, sovereign African country, a product of the African freedom struggle, it is a shame that we are in this state of affairs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Boaka. Thank you. Let's get back to the program, why you are here. You have been on a journey to bring the opposition together, a tireless journey. You've held several meetings with nearly every presidential candidate. Like I have featured them here. You've also taken time to have sometimes one-on-one conversations, sometimes group meetings with them. Just walk the Zambians through. What is this initiative? Have you given it a name? Who is involved and what are you trying to achieve? And then you have an upcoming conference. Just give us a ballpark in all this, what is happening before we go to the state of the country.
Some of us have been called into this and have accepted it with the determination that this time round, let us truly fulfill the promises of independence. Let us truly establish a multi-party democracy. Let us reset our country in terms of its governance with power sharing and shared development and human relations between groups and sectors of our society, which lead to equitable national integration and harmonious relationship, so that we can pursue our livelihood, we can exercise our political rights without fear and without infringing on each other's civil and human rights. That is really the project. Our initiative is not improperly what we could call ours as members of the Council of Elders or members of the National Conference Planning Committee. It is an assignment we've been given from the political actors themselves. As you have said, we have spent many months, many weeks, many days engaging with various political leaders, leaders of political formations, in groups, and even individually. Without exception, the 22 or so political leaders whom we engaged as a Council of Elders, without exception, each one of them assured us that they believe that those who are for genuine change, beyond changing the person of the president and beyond changing the name of the government administration, towards resetting Zambia in terms of governance, in terms of economic system, and in terms of social relationship, that move us away from negative ethnicity, should come together and fortify themselves and reinforce themselves to be able to most effectively utilize the opportunity that is beckoning on the 13th August 2026, to use that opportunity of that election to really bring about the change that Africans, including Africans in Zambia, have been demanding of their political leaders and of their political systems. And in those interactions, apart from agreeing that it is a good thing to unite, they also agreed, without exception, that this unity should be based on focus on a program, a minimum program of change that would be agreed by the uniting forces. They were also agreed that in order to determine the details of these things, instead of being made one by one or two by two, there should be a meeting to which all the political leaders whom we had met and others would be invited to participate, to examine the proposition on the table, one of the united force. You had said this is uniting the opposition. It is actually not that. It's uniting leaders and citizens who are committed to democratic and development change. There may be people in the opposition who are not demanding any change at all, beyond maybe that they should be the new president enjoying personalized leadership and enjoying the fruits of having a ruling party dominating the economic sectors. Those, whether they are in opposition or in the ruling administration, do not fit our timetable, our program. They do not fit in. So the unity is not in opposition to anybody. It's a unity of those who believe and are committed to advocate for real change. And most of those may not be in political formations that are in government, but not everybody outside the government administration can be taken for granted as belonging to the advocates for change.
Yeah, you put it very well, because our politics are dominated by personalities. In fact, the entire debate around the country is that change is personalized to an individual, and then that individual should form a team, be the flag bearer. And even in your process, whatever you come up with, you probably come up with a name of an individual who may be the flag bearer, although you are insisting on issues that you think should be made as a focus of commitment for the new government to change the country. That change should be beyond personality. The conference that you've called, I learned of some concerns by some presidential candidates or their political parties, where they are asking, what is the delegates list? Who is coming? Who is, there are all these questions. Just speak to that before we go to the main issues affecting the country.
This is an initiative arising from what the Council of the Elders were told by the political leaders themselves, that they wanted those who believe in change to be united, and they wanted a meeting involving all of them rather than one by one. And in those forums, both before and after that meeting, political leaders had every opportunity able to put forward their ideas, including ideas on how, in terms of focusing on the elective part of the conference, how the delegates will be composed, which of the delegates will have voting rights, how those delegates will be shared among different competing political party leaders. So they had opportunity. And what we have come up with is a result of what the political leaders together have proposed. And this is that of the delegates, 55% should not come from political parties, but from civil society. But 45% should be shared equally among political parties who are partnering in this unification exercise. That was the decision of the participating political leaders. And political leaders had the opportunity. They were invited without exception to the meeting, and 15 political leaders attended our meeting on the 16th of January. And it's those political leaders that determined and resolved and established a national conference planning committee, and the political leaders, in fact, it was decided by that meeting that each political leader was entitled to be in the planning committee, in addition to a few people who were in the resolutions committee and 2 or 3 others. Otherwise, the majority of the planning committee are political leaders who are leading political formations. And up to date, the invitation is open. It has been opened before the 16th January meeting. It has continued to be open. It is open now, and it will be open right up to the date of the national conference. And even at the national conference, the door is open. In fact, we welcome all political leaders who want to be present to participate. Everything that is being put on the table, all the issues, including the final decision on how the participants will be divided between civil society and political actors, and how the voters' role will be determined, will be decided at that conference. So even if so far you have not contributed, if you come and you have ideas, you have proposals, you are welcome to come and make them, so that after the conference has agreed on matters such as those, that's when we will move to provide an opportunity for elections, again, if the national conference so decides. But in addition to those issues, we would like certainly the first day of the conference to be dedicated to discussing the issues, economic issues, political issues, social issues, governance issues, constitutional issues that will be put. They may be lead speakers, but what they say will be subject to debate, consideration, and final decision by conference. So even the election provision is open for that national conference to make final decisions by the political leaders themselves, about themselves, but not excluding civil society, and ensuring that the processes that are determined both for discussions and decision making as well as for elections are acceptable to the national conference and are fair to everybody. It's as a matter of principles that will be tabled for final endorsement by the conference is the idea that all political actors, all political leaders should be treated equally and should be provided with equal chance of speaking and proposing and deciding and being candidates and being electable. And that at the end of the day, another thing that is on the agenda is for a conference to consider the proposition that those who want to be our leaders, particularly at presidential, vice presidential, and top leadership, should be able to pledge that they will be available to be candidates for positions of their choice, but if they are not elected, they will be committed to remain in the team. That is a tough order, but that is one of the conditions that will be proposed and debated at the conference. Also, conference, there will be a proposal for a social contract which deals with the relationship among the political actors, the political parties in the partnership, as well as a social contract between that group and the people of Zambia, as to what leadership style, what leadership programs, and what development and agenda they have. So there will be a social contract, and we expect that those who would stand for leadership will sign up to that, having had the opportunity to debate, propose, decide together with others. And so there will be also a minimum program on the table to be determined by the National Conference, to which those who want to lead be required to commit themselves as to pledge that they will be committed to fulfilling that program, and many other things that will be put on the tables. Some of there may be new agenda items. As you know, normally at conferences and meetings, the first agenda item is to propose, discuss, and adopt the agenda. So it is that agenda that will be adopted there, that will be followed. And it is that agenda that the participants, both political actors, leaders of political formations, and civil society leaders, will be free to discuss subject by subject and lead up to, as much as possible, the participants being on the same page into the way forward towards a united force of democracy and development, change advocates. Those who want business as usual, who thinks we are right where we are, who simply want to replace the person of the president, may not fit into such an agenda, if that is the agenda that will be adopted by the National Conference, which I hope will be the case. But it's not up to me, it's up to all the participants who are being invited to the National Conference.
Thank you very much. Dear viewers, if you're joining us, share the broadcast. Share the broadcast. We are hosting Prince Akashambatwa Mbikusta Lewanika. They are hosting a national conference on democracy and development on the 6th and 7th March 2026. Is highlighting the issues that the conference will be discussing. It's a 2-day conference that they are hosting on 6th and 7th to chart the way forward for our country. It's called the National Conference on Democracy and Development. Earlier in the week, they held a press conference to outline about this
civil society. And the civil society includes the traditional leaders, the colleagues in the Oasis Forum, and the young people, and also there will be gender, affirmative action involved in all that. And that process is all ongoing. We hope that by the time we end, I think in the next few days, we shall have an all-inclusive People's Assembly meeting in Lusaka somewhere, at which we will come up with resolutions that can advance our country forward.
Thank you very much. Is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Okay, but I should also say that in a democracy, we should never be under a delusion that every single individual would agree to the same things. So everybody is free to endorse who they want to endorse or not to endorse who they want to endorse. And the culture of various vulnerable people or threatened people endorsing the ruling party is not new, and it's not surprising, and it can be judged for what it is. There have always been such moves because of this over-centralization and over-personalization of power. Many people, if not all of us, our livelihood is in the hand of the freedom that was promised at independence. The freedom that was promised at independence. Zambia could be said to have started on a fairly positive constitutional basis, because our independence constitution, which was the first Republican constitution, was a product of fairly prolonged negotiations. And towards the end, key stakeholders met and agreed on the independence dispensation in a give and take negotiation. And through consultations and negotiations, there was a settlement, for instance, over the status of Barotseland through negotiation between the government of Barotseland Protectorate and the government of Northern Rhodesia Protectorate, which from the very beginning of 1964 was led by President Kaunda. Then there was also negotiation between political parties in Northern Rhodesia, including the United National Independence Party, the African National Congress, which were led by Africans, the Liberal Party, and the National Progressive Party, which had earlier been the United Federal Party, which were headed by European settlers who were ready to go forward as Zambians together with all the other Zambians. So one could say that immediately Zambia was independent, all the citizens became Africans, whether their skins were white, brown, or yellow, whether their background was from Europe, from Asia, or from Africa. So that was the step that took place. There was a consensus, there was a settlement. Unfortunately, within the first 4 years after independence, this settlement and this consensus began to be undermined, most critically by the removal of the referendum clause, which empowered the people, the citizens as a whole, over the constitution, which prescribed that any changes to the constitution had to be reverted back to a national referendum. Once that was removed in 1969, we opened the gate towards undermining both the Barotse settlement and the consent and consensus enjoyed by the Zambian constitution. And when the one-party state was introduced, this completely undermined the consensus that had been achieved. The first consensus was achieved because it was discussed and negotiated by all stakeholders. It was a constitution they all accepted and possessed. But the one-party constitution was proposed and executed and imposed by only one political party. That was the beginning of destroying the consensus. There was an attempt 17 years later, in 1990-91, when the people were organized to demand and successfully got the reintroduction of multi-party democracy. Unfortunately, the process of introducing multi-party democracy in 1991 only did a small bit by changing one clause in the constitution. The rest of the constitution remained the one-party state which had never enjoyed full consensus. And we have lived like that since 1991, being promised every election that this constitution will be revisited, but ending up with government administration taking advantage of the personalization of power and the provision for dominance of one single party to abuse the rights. And those changes were never subjected to full negotiation of all stakeholders, and they were never proposals that enjoyed consensus. So that was the third Republican Constitution. So now we are putting on the table at the National Conference a very fundamental proposition that we need a comprehensive review of the Constitution. We need a complete reconstruction of the Constitution to fulfill the aspiration promised at independence and to fulfill the promise of returning to multi-party democracy by establishing a constitution which is truly people-driven and which is a win-win for everybody, which can enjoy full consensus, even more consensus than the first constitution, whose consensus was determined by negotiation through representative leaders of different sectors. This time, the proposition on the floor to the National Conference is to have a constitution in which the citizens have a direct say, representing themselves, not through representatives of their political parties or their part of the country and so on. So this reconstructed constitution will automatically become, if it is approved and processed, the fourth Republican Constitution. That is why in our narratives to the public about this national conference, we keep mentioning the goal of establishing a fourth Republican Constitution.
What's the difference? People don't understand what made the First Republic. Why should we be called Second Republic? Why should we be called Third Republic? What makes those changes that we should go to a Fourth Republic? Why haven't the constitutional amendments in 1996, 2016, and now 2025 caused a Fourth Republic? Why are we still in the Third Republic? Just briefly explain that to our audience.
Republican Constitution, obviously, you could almost say before that, we were not free, we were not independent, and we didn't really have a constitution of our own. So that automatically became the first Republican Constitution. Now, the change in 1972, which started to be implemented in 1973, was a very fundamental change from a multi-party democracy to a one-party state, so fundamental, it even included attaching the ruling party's constitution to the national constitution. So it was fundamentally different from the first and earned a distinction worthy of calling it the second Republican Constitution, because it was so fundamentally different from the first one. Now, the 1990-91 reform movement aimed at reintroducing multi-party democracy also promised to reverse all the things that were introduced in the one-party state constitution, which undermined the original consensus, which compromised the freedom of association, freedom of speech, and freedom of movement, and other human and civil rights of the Zambian. The civil rights of Zambians to vote were very much compromised in the sense that you could only vote for candidates coming from one party. So that any change from, just like the change from the first Republican Constitution to the second, was really fundamental when it introduced the one-party state. The change from this fundamentally different constitution, the second Republican Constitution, was supposed to be so fundamental also in order to reverse the earlier fundamental change that it earned the title of Third Republican Constitution. There was a consensus on the change of one clause, Clause 4, by allowing the introduction of multi-party elections, but there was no consensus on the reform of the rest of the constitution. The expectation and the promise that was made, particularly by the movement for multi-party democracy, that after the 1991 election, this constitution will be revisited to completely redress whatever undemocratic, civil rights compromising, human rights compromising provision that had been introduced in the one-party state constitution. And that project is the unfinished project. And the constitution that is now demanded in order to fulfill the promises of independence and to redress the introduction of the one-party state, if it is a thorough, comprehensive review, if it results in a complete reconstruction of the constitution, would have earned the right to have a distinct name as the Fourth Republican Constitution. The changes in 96 and others.
Thank you, Walker.
To end.
Thank you, Walker. Yeah, I was saying, yeah, I think you have explained. We got to another matter, economic changes that have occurred in our country other than the constitutional changes. We noticed recently that China has dominated our international relations from the construction of Tazara, which opened up our access to the sea route, a route when we're closed out by the imperialists that were ruling at the time, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Angola. And recently, the major infrastructure development done by the Patriotic Front in bridges, dams, airports, power stations had a lot of money that came from China, to the extent that we owe China to the tune of $5.8 billion. How do you see these international relations? And as your conference discussed in this environment, our international policy and what it should be?
Also leads to the sort of radical change that is required. We got our independence in an era so-called the Cold War. So there was a pull and push relationship between mostly Eastern Europe and other socialist and communist countries versus the Western countries and capitalist countries. And the colonial forces, those who had colonized us, were from the West. And they were very jittery that in our anti-colonial response, we were liable, and indeed we did make signals of looking to the East, and they were afraid that they will lose a grip over us. So there was a push and push where African countries, Latin American countries, Asian countries, who were not part of those blocs, were always being challenged of being puppets of one or the other, or being provinces of one or the other of the Cold War warriors. And our leaders, including African leaders, but also in the third world generally, agreed that we did not have to belong or to support any one of the Cold Warring countries and blocs. We had to have a non-alignment, aligned policy, which freed us to decide what we want, to support what we support, oppose what we oppose, and pursue a policy that is independent as much as possible without being feared. Now, in the last few decades, as the grip of the West, and particularly the rise of the Chinese economy and the rise of Chinese, the People's Republic of China's role in the world, those who had always held us in the chains of neocolonialism are always fearful that we might hand ourselves over to the Chinese and turn our backs on them. And they think that our engagement with the Chinese is compromising our sovereignty. Meanwhile, they have spent 500 years trampling on our sovereignty, and now they want to protect our sovereignty. The point that must be made, and that may be asserted by Africans, is that our sovereignty is our business. Whether we relate and trade or get investment from this country or that country is not the factor that should compromise our sovereignty. Our sovereignty should stand on our own self-determination to be independent and to guard jealously our sovereignty. I do not think that so far the relationship we have with China is on compromising our sovereignty, except to the extent that some African countries may allow it. In fact, the present situation is that our sovereignty has continued to be undermined and compromised in our relationship with the capitalist West without ceasing. So we have a challenge to assert our sovereignty from all quarters. The other aspect of foreign affairs that requires change in Zambia is that, particularly under the leadership of the present government administration, we seem to have compromised our Pan-Africanism. We seemed to be ready to compromise our Afro-Asian solidarity that has stood for the civil and human rights of the formerly colonized countries. One of our subjects at the national conference is foreign policy. We are tabling the proposition that Zambia needs to reassert its traditional non-alignment position, its traditional Pan-African position, and its traditional championing of the civil and human rights of all human beings, its traditional siding with the people who are victims of injustice. And we have seen with our present administration, one, they have opened an embassy for the genocidal Zionist government in Tel Aviv. And there are talks which sometimes are denied, sometimes not so strongly denied, that they are flirting with introducing relationship with the American military. They've even agreed to sometimes say nothing or even join in the chorus that we have some common defense and security interests with the United States. This, to us, we are tabling for the conference to consider how dangerous this is. We have seen the development in the Middle East, where it is, although the culprits are the United States government, those being bombed are simply countries which are hosting the military. So one needs to be alert and examined whether or not in our foreign policy, particularly our foreign policy relating to state security and defense and security, we are not endangering the security of our people by making them possible victims of an onslaught of bombardment in a war that is of no interest to us and that does not promote our non-alignment status, that does not promote our decolonization mission, and that does not promote our independence.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dear viewers, we are hosting Honorable Prince Akashamba Twambikustalewanika. They are hosting the National Conference on Democracy and Development, a 2-day conference to adopt a common national program and elect both a leader and team for, I think for the participation in the upcoming general election. Is come to our studios, is in outdoors, so this broadcast will not be long like the usual broadcast. I'll be opening the phone lines and I'll be inviting your questions to Honorable Prince Akashamba Twambikustalewanika. Ask him your question. Let's then quickly begin to wind down. Woaka, I'll get back to you just after this short break. We are discussing also the matter of Fred Membe, who's been arrested by the police. We've condemned this in the strongest term. He just spoke to a national issue that our country is preoccupied with. Release and settle the matter regarding the late president. Put him to rest.
Hakainde chilema. Nkalapo na chifundo pa mutima. Kwato mutima uwa muntu, uwa muntu. Leko mnove ayatushe. Yala kwana 9 months. Ichitumbi cha kwa Edgar Lungu chichiri kufriji. Ichi chimono kukake ichitumbi. Watwale ichitumbi cha mnove ku prison for 9 months. Wakwato mutima washani. Nangu kukoso mutima te ifyo. Release that body so that Edgar's family can bury their loved one. Be a human being. Your actions are human. Edgar is not buried today because of you wanting his body.
Thank you very much. Callers, the lines are open. You can call and ask Woaka. They are hosting a national conference on democracy and development that the country has to change. It has to take a new strategic direction. That unity of our country is threatened. There is no tangible development agenda, long-term agenda for our country. They're trying to come up with a common program that should be adopted by all political parties. And they are also pushing for a genuine constitutional reform program where our constitution will be reformed to the extent that we can have a fourth republic. Are you ready for this Saturday as we are waiting for callers to make your contributions? Are you ready for this 2-day conference? Is everything in place?
In place, but we are determined and confident that it will take place and that we will get participation and that those participants will be able to debate, discuss, and determine our way forward together. And so we are confident that the conference will go forward and that it will be successful. But relating to the environment in our country, as I've said, it has distressed me to notice in the last few months, if not a year, the level of fear among our people, fear for their freedom of movement, fear for their freedom of speech, fear for freedom of association, and also not only fear, but actual legislative and administrative reduction of the democratic space, the freedom space on citizens. And this is particularly worrying in a season when we are facing a presidential, parliamentary, and local government election. The elections need to be conducted in an environment that really supports the free and fairness of the field. Each time since 1991, we introduced a culture.
You've raised a fundamental issue, Boaka. Do you have faith that we can have a free and fair elections this year? You've just alluded to the shrinking democratic space, the overreach by the executive to control both the judiciary and parliament, and institutions, democratic institutions like the Electoral Commission of Zambia that are threatened, that seems to be under the stranglehold of the executive. Are we able to hold, and as a country hold, credible, democratic, peaceful, free and fair elections?
We call upon all political actors, even those who feel as strongly as I do, to remain peaceful, non-violent, and exercise their constitutional rights, but assert the fullest enjoyment of their civil rights. Resist any moves to restrict their civil rights, to constrain their human rights. We must resist. But let's resist peacefully, let's resist constitutionally, but we must resist. So that the environment is oppressive, it's suppressive, it's undemocratic, it's unfair, but despite that, we must be determined to exercise our civil and human rights. It is sad that up to now, 62 years after independence, we can even have contestation over the Constitution. We want to bring in a Fourth Republic to end that. That up to now, we are still faced with the Public Order Act. We are still faced with draconian legislation that threatened our freedom of association, freedom of movement, and freedom of speech. But despite it is precisely that environment that we must be determined to change. It's precisely because of this terrible environment, this undemocratic environment, that we must ensure that 18th August 2026, not just another election, any other election, not just to change the president, not just to change the ruling party, but to really usher in a government that has the credibility, the commitment, the courage to change the system radically, to bring in the Fourth Republic, to bring in long-term planning based on Zambians themselves bringing about their constitution, Zambians themselves bringing about their national development plan. You know, the history of national development planning in Zambia is worthy noting that the first development plan, the interim development plan, and the first national plan were actually planned for us by Professor Sears, a British professor at Oxford, employed by the World Bank. And the second national development plan and the third national plan was basically a desk job by political leaders and public administrators.
Yeah, let me just take some coursework, just a minute, just to see the people that are calling. The lines are open. Let's hear your views. Yes, caller, please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Yeah, Mukambana Kiara Banda.
Yes, Wabanda.
Yes. The president who is serious.
No, we are not doing voting for presidents yet. We are not voting for president. We are hosting Prince Akashambatwa Mbigusalewanika over the National Conference on Democracy and Development. Dear viewers, we are not voting today. Waka, you are aware that I've been running a poll I've been running a poll of candidates, and it has generated a lot of interest. But today we are hosting Boaka. He has a separate program called National Conference on Democracy and Development, and is hosting opposition leaders over the weekend in a 2-day conference. That's what we are discussing. Do you have any matter? I notice people are calling for voting. No, we'll be voting on Wednesday. We have another poll on Wednesday. Today we are hosting Boaka. Continue with your thoughts. Sorry, Boaka, I disturbed you.
National development plans were desk jobs by political leaders and public servants and a few businessmen. And after that, we abandoned planning in the middle of planning the fourth. Then it took several years to reintroduce planning. But unfortunately, when planning was reintroduced, from beginning to end, there is interference from foreign forces, from donors being involved in our own plan. Now we are proposing to the conference to consider that when we reintroduce national planning, it should include short-term, medium-term, long-term, and the whole process should be entirely Zambian citizen-driven, without donors coming into committees, without donors telling us how much money they are prepared and for what they are prepared to donate. We must have our own national development plan. And in addition to that, we are also putting on the agenda in terms of the economy, proposition that within the first session of Parliament after the next general election, Parliament should be advised to consider setting up a parliamentary select committee on various economic issues, including the investment and development in the mining sector.
Thank you.
Including
Let me just take
the administration of CDF.
Let me just take some calls. You are right. Donors sit in our meetings and plan our national programs, because to a large extent they bring money, sometimes up to the tune of 80% of our national budget. That's money from their taxpayers. So I think until we generate our own local resources, then we can chase them away from. Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from. Just a minute. I put you on speaker. I think it's not on speaker. Yes, Mr. Munkonge.
Yes, Ambassador, mwaombeni mkwai walishani ba haka wesu.
Yo wale miumfwa.
Mkwai, the voice of the voiceless, non-stop, never fade. Ambassador, ndai pshako ba haka, ba jefe ba londorola, na yonse bimupekanye wa bulera nga fyo kwebati. Balesho kuchitali timu icharo cheso. Nomba opo ndai pshako ni hapa because n'abeshiba n'ama organization yonse ofo yeminine n'ama opposition parties ofo ya lirero kuli abanesubamo aba imafe beno kwebati awo ine nebo feneka ne winga rubura bena Zambia abashire kwa unity so pali ya ishta ya baka kwate yo program ba bareti poshani pali abo abantu nanguli party nshi nanguruba linshi babikire popali abo abantu abako bachabene beka bali n'abayimfunyamu uko yicetekera abene beka okweba beka fi ebengesa rugura abena Zambia tabarifwa efi akweba unity elio chimbyo cyo ndefo okwipshako cyo ndeni chi ichakweba busheba kabena bare poshani pantino pona mbiro kumfwa pamurandi wa chitiro twakwata ngana penda mu Zambia fe bonse abantu ibaka bamumembe bamurenga kapwepwe elio na bamaeba Sumaili about 5 people to 6 people eba sara ndafyo kweba chao bane chachiramo lekere ni kwa abanensu na kubashiki omuntu babeko free lero bakateka besu bali tekere ne fintu bapangire chituresta benefit nemfumu shadistire sana benefit mbaba kabare tukoshani kumfumu shachikaya abaishi bafyo ama values yaba bafiro kwimoko bati baomana akapya bakulingana na bakapa kwe bati bachita protect ama values because abantu abengi bali karafe tondoro tabaishi banefya chitika pamurandi wa chiriro cheso so
Thank
pamurandi
you.
wa international sanction kuvenga tweba kopa kwe bati bandofi ebona umpako fyabara ndakushikwa lero amashu ibenga tupera kwa yatukoserisha.
Thank you very much. I think his questions are just in two parts. Number one, how are you dealing with candidates that are determined to go their own way solo, despite your initiative to reach out to them? They seem to be driven by personal ambitions, and maybe coming to your fora, they feel that their chances will be threatened by, driven by known fears. How are you dealing with those candidates that are either shunning or are reluctant to come to your conference? And number two is asking about the late president. When will you put him to rest? Because it appears that this has just become, normal not to be attended to. Thank you, Walker. You can attend to those two questions.
Yes, in our outreach, to ensure that the message is out there, that we want the maximum participation, and the door is open, has always been open. Most of these leaders, in fact all of them, were there. They had meetings with the Council of Elders, and they assured us. They are the ones who set us on this path. They are the ones who advised that we needed to meet them together so that they can together decide the way forward. We invited them to that meeting as they had asked us to do. 15 of them came, and they determined this path towards planning for this conference. And they resolved, in fact, that apart from the resolutions committee and a few other people, all the leaders of political formation should themselves be part of the planning committee. And throughout this process of planning, we have been relentless in sending out invitation, outreach, meetings. And what is interesting is that I haven't come across anybody who said they don't agree with this process or that they are not coming. They've always been telling us they are coming, there's a funeral, all sorts of excuses. But we are continuing to reach out at any time up to the conference itself. All leaders of political parties only need to indicate that they are interested in participating. The sooner the better, because things have to be arranged. We are not under the delusion that it is possible for everybody to unite. Indeed, we are quite aware that the process that we have been asked to set up is a bit tricky for most of our leaders, because when they check the process, they find that it does not guarantee that if you participate, you will win. More than that, it is requiring that for you to participate, you must be ready to accept the results and still remain part of the team, even if you don't become the presidential or vice presidential candidate. That is a tough order for many of our leaders who think that they can do it alone. So there will be leaders like that. I don't want to condemn them or to second guess their motivation. Maybe they have confidence. But I think, and we think, and all the discussion we have had in leaders have pointed out that even if it was possible for a single person standing alone becoming our president, it is not ideal, because then that will become his personal or government, and that will perpetuate the personalization of leadership that has been our problem for much of our independence years. So the reason we want a team spirited leadership is not only in order to be strong enough to win, it's also to be credible enough to be able to work for all the people across party line, to form a non-partisan constitutional regime, economic system, and to also bring about the end to this negative ethnicity, which we have had for many years and we have not faced. That requires a united effort. You can't single-handedly end tribalism. You need to join with others. You can't single-handedly plan this economy. You can't single-handedly bring about a constitution. Even if you form a team which knows that you are the Messiah, that will not bring about, logically, it will not guarantee us that we will be able to address the problems that we are facing in a manner in which we can all share. After we have reset Zambia, then we can have back into our political formations and compete, knowing that the political electoral system, the judicial system, the parliamentary oversight is all a win-win for all citizens, and people can even tolerate losing because it will not be a matter of life and death. Now we are facing an election where if a certain person wins, other people are sure they are going to jail. We don't want such a regime. If a certain person wins, other people say, oh, hey, I'm likely to be freed from jail. We don't want that as the environment for an election. In order to ensure that such conditions are not the environment, we have to reset Zambia together, for us together. Regarding the, oh God, I almost feel like crying. I'm just imagining if it was my body in South Africa. And I think all of us should reflect on that. This is a shame. I am on record saying that we understand there is a stalemate between the president and the family. The only way forward is there has to be give and take negotiations. There has to be someone, either the family or the president, who graciously step back and let God do the rest. And you know, some of the people involved in this tug of war never cease to tell us how Christian they are. Can you imagine? Why don't you leave God to do his job? If you are a real Christian. So out of the two, it's so terrible to call mourners contestants. They are contesting over their father's body, over their husband's body. I think that the government should be able to step back and let the family bury their father, their husband. If changes, the environment changes in future, other burial arrangements can be made when the environment is clear for that. If it never comes about, it's all right. If it comes about, it is all good. But as of now, as I've said before, there is no decent, humane way in which the government can wrestle the body of Edgar Lungu from his family. The only way they can get that body would be indecent. The only way they can get that body would not be a win-win situation. So I think the government leaders of Zambia should reflect on that. I don't see how we can even ask the question whether or not the field for the next election is free and fair and conducive to a democratic election with this unburied body in South Africa. I don't think so. But the key is in the hands, yes, of the family, if they so choose. But I find it difficult to ask the family to do anything, given the state of affairs they are in terms of the sensitivity that this person is not their president, is their daddy, is their sweetheart. And, you know, so there are emotions involved. So I tend to sympathize with sensitivity on the emotions of the family. I think the government has no business being emotional over this matter. But the government can concede to allow this a settlement of some kind, even if it is temporal, so that we can move on and so that it does not continue to be something interfering with our political environment, particularly in relation to the sort of environment of freedom and free-mindedness and worried mind that we need to be in during this season of the elections.
Thank you. I'll take two last questions, and then Boak, I will invite you to make your closing remarks after you respond to the callers. Hello, caller. Please tell us your name and where you are calling us from.
My name is Sensho Banda.
Honorable Sensho Banda, thank you very much. Kindly ask what Prince Akashambatwa Mbikustalewanika your question.
Okay, there are two interventions actually. One is it did hint to the issue of Zambia shifting its foreign policy from non-aligned to a pro-West orientation. And of course, this was a huge shift in terms of geopolitics. And it has had its own repercussion in terms of diplomatic and geopolitics consequences. We've seen because of that, we become aligned to support Israel. And also we lost the honest broker status as an unaligned country. Zambia used to mediate in terms of any problems in Africa. And again, we saw ourselves shifting from a Belt and Bridge Initiative to PPP. And we've seen ourselves actually putting ourselves in harm's way in the sense that, for example, in the wake of what's going on in Iran, and for example, we are seen to be pro-West, and Iran looks at such a manner, and you know Iran is known for utilizing asymmetric warfare, and if Zambia is perceived as a key Western surrogate in Southern Africa by hosting the US AFRICOM offices and high-level military summits, and this puts us in harm's way. So for me, is that there is need, because I've not heard him talk about how much that the Fourth Republic will deal with the issue of foreign policy, because we are engaged by the outside world on how we've aligned our foreign policy. So the next aspect is the issue of Dr. Membe. You see, in any functioning democracy, criticism is part and parcel of democracy. And in any case, checks and balances can be seen in parliament, can be seen through judicial review, can be seen through CSOs, can be seen through political players. And at times, checks and balances can come in a tone which we may not like, as it were. It's not in the interest of the ruling party that checks and balances should come in a tone which is likable, but it is in their interest to undertake, appreciate what are the issues which are being raised. We look at the issues Dr. Membe raised, are issues actually which hinges on freedom of speech, and also you raised Becket Manda as relates to the late President Edgar Jagwarungu. And maybe the last thing also, he has not hinted to the effect that how will the Council of Elders galvanize the efforts in as far as to bring together, because they're already, for example, there's People's Party, there's Tonse, which is already maybe split in two, and there's now Council of Elders. How will the Council of Elders, if at all bring together all these parts to ensure that they are as one. For the issues which I wanted to raise. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good evening, Dr. Alka. It was actually my lecturer when I was doing my MPA. Good evening.
Okay. Honorable Sencio Banda says you're his lecturer and is asking about the fate of the other alliances. Is yours just part of the other alliances? How different is it from, and of course, the issue of foreign policy? Hello, caller, please tell us your name and where you are calling us from and make your contributions.
Pakutuletera abafyashi abayikale nchite Italy nokumona oko twapokera obuntungwa oko tufikire efingi fintu balefimona inene omulenga kuchingola balefimona efisuma nefi balefimona echo bayimo kwe bati batambi okumona kwe bati nga pali akabungwe kabo kengekala panji nokutambo okutana laizo okutiro kwe bati ilo bakala afima pano petsamba lya chalo akamona kwe bati chalo cha Zambia bachisha mu minwe isuma. Number my question is one, yakubalirapo. Mweshi ishi, ushi kunshi, iyo program wale tekanya. Anturo tuleta toward over my election. Apa tulela nda tusherefe nemi ya jisha kupenda. Elonga chaku
Bamulenga. Hii program ikawako pa weekend, pa 6 na pa 7.
Okay, Mwamba. Na totera na chwa kwa tini nchero wako limbia msholo bachira nda so 6 mwini omweshi. Twatotera sana kubafyashi. Twaisa isakuli ili ashole babushishe ili wamembe waisa ikalepo maseo zilelo. Mwe bafyashi ivi vyonse vileka birwati mwafila ndapo. Mwafiteka muri chino echalo pakutiro kwe bati ama former president bonze abakabapo abakalaisa po abakafumapo. Tufile tu abasunga bwino ngechalo chabe na Kristo. Tatufile tu akwata umusobolo era nangu kwata umusango uli onse. Lelo tufile tu aishi boko bati umuntu uba mu butungulushi te ponsenga wani yakuti atena pabiri nangu patatu kuleka birwe ntungulushi nga chakutira yamuno munangu ajali tenene ko pabiri nangu patatu amwita muri privacy nangula mu musango usuma bayayikala babiri balandanga pa wayiketeshani nga pa wachitereshani nga pa fichwesi che kuchalo nga kubwesa kuchalo chabwerera kuchalo muri umusango twikalire popali tuno chalo chesu tafinga moneka bwino kuti lafyatwalira kuntanjoko tuleya echo twingateme shoko bati nele mukala kwate meeting pa 6 and 7 baleka biro kuli komaila pokuli landa and mwamona ngevya ambo kuchitika bamembe bayikatirwa mulandi wako monoko ba chachini mubiri wa mufyashi watekere chalo cha Zambia ala ikala kufika pa 6 apo mulelanda pa 5 inshakumana 9 months nombanga chakutira twalafirwa vyokulanda ngevyo balelo ndolola twali mona ba mayo aneri muti bale yasuka mulya parliament ukuthi lawa abalenga imoba opposition nombe chachine nechinga inenga mwantwala ku court elo bampingula na sango kwe bati mulandu bampingula ishumfuire bwino na chita piu are you telling Mwamba kuti mwaisa bati newa mitwala ku court ni newo chiste timusumi nevyo kwe bati newa mutwele ku court ni newo ngakwikala panyi na bati aho kanshi uyu mulandu leka ukwira papene tushike chitumbi cha bafyashi lero chilipo chakwe bati twalalolela ngevyo mwebere again bakulekeresha ba politician aba mkwete ba haka mkwete abana abanono abashamwene oko mwalepo ko buntungwa abashamwene oko mwafuma abashamwene vyo mwachulire mwira abafisanga lero fyanya mbele bebera pofye iwe lekefi biko na ule chalo bantu bali inonjitana tukwata abana abanono abalumendo abafyewe inonjita sidafya ebere kaunda tumukashitishe chalo bamulandu wakutemolu pia ile ero na chiseka ngana muchimona abantu abengina abatemuisha polu pia ukuchire chalo cha Zambia icho chinga kabiro kwe batinga chako ata muposere kwa mano umuntu vyo kufuma vyo kufyalo ve fimbi ukwiza muri chino chalo kuchaye batishishe chalo na bena Zambia bonse mbone fe nala bachane mwene kuti babushisha kuli abalumendo tukwete apa lyo botatu afwa eturumbule abengina mubeshire.
Thank you very much. He says the kind of leaders we have may sell our country. They are not like you, patriotic. Let's take the last caller. Caller, introduce yourself and make your remarks.
Okay, Bella speaking here. It's an honor to speak with you, Honorable Lewanika, as well as you, Ambassador. Thanks for a very insightful presentation that he made. My question, however, is to do with how we got here. And being a historian, although maybe not African, but it's of interest to me because one of the fundamental issues that we fail to address as a nation and as a people is this thing of holding on to an educational system that has failed us time and time again. Do you feel that the very reason why we're here is the lack of information and dissemination of the necessary tools that our children, ourselves even, I've noticed even in the comments section, a lot of people are so intrigued of the facts of how we got here. I know you were really active with MMD and so on and so forth. Do you feel you, as a generation, have done enough in terms of the educational reforms? I know overseas and in Europe in particular, you have think tanks as the order of the day. Would you have done anything different? And thank you for stepping forward and being the father that you are. And we pray that people answer this call of unity and reflection, on what can be done to salvage the situation, albeit at the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you. This caller has been insistent, but will finally be our last caller. Caller, please tell us your name and tell us your contributions quickly.
I'm Chris from Zambia. Good evening, Mwamba.
Good evening.
My suggestion is on the opposition unity. I'm looking at the program why I'm about the 7 opposition opinion poll. Why can't they just say with their political parties, which means PF, Mapangako, Baruvinda, Makepi as presidential candidates via Fiafine. Then join the remaining about 5 years.
Oh, that's not what we are discussing today. That's not what we are discussing today. Thank you very much. Of course, there's some confusion with my initiative. We should dovetail and run one program. But Bella asked a very important question, that you, our parents, did you leave us a colonial education system that has brought us where we are? You didn't do enough to reform it, and that you are proposing constitutional reforms. Don't you think that at the heart of it should be the education system that appears to conduct no other things other than miseducation? Please then give us your last remarks after you've answered the callers.
We did our best, but it was not good enough because we've not achieved the advancement that we needed to achieve. Some of us have decided to come back and intervene. This time round, both myself as chairperson of the planning committee and my deputy chairperson, in fact my co-chairperson, Dr. Mbita Chitala, at the very beginning, the first meeting of the planning committee, we declared that we personally are not going to be candidates for president, vice president, for parliament or local government, in order to position ourselves in a position in which we could freely and honorably be facilitators for a process that depends on its execution on the political leaders that has come forth. In the process of the meetings we have had, the planning meetings we have, in the program we are putting forward for the consideration of the committee, there is a lot of historical information to be shared. And our keynote speaker, for instance, is Professor Cephas Lumina, a prominent scholar and lawyer who will be speaking on the history of our constitution, which is basically the history of Zambia, to kick off this discussion. And every item of the agenda involves the past, the present, and future aspiration for the people's consideration. In terms of our facing the 13th August election, it is very important to go back into history, that in the independence movement, at the beginning of the first overtly political organization in 1948, there were two slogans: one man, one vote. In today's more politically correct language, one person, one vote. The second slogan was leadership through team spirit. In the process that we have begun, we have inserted that message everywhere. That what we are trying, when we say we want a team leadership, this is not new. This is what the forebearers, the pioneers of the independence movement recognized, that the best leadership is collective. And that the key to our independence, the key to our freedom lies in the vote. And therefore we are trying to guide ourselves and guide our leaders, guide political actors to the importance of this vote. It should not be something you sell to the highest bidder or something you cast carelessly. This is the key to the future of the current generation and future generation. So that is really lesson number one from history. Let's value and utilize the vote freely and without it being a result. Our vote should not be a result of awarding those who have bribed us, or those who have terrorized us, or those who have cheated us. Every voter is over 18. They are really well equipped intellectually to decide to resist being bribed, to decide to resist being terrorized, whether by government or political candidates. You should vote bravely and be alert not to be cheated. Some of the campaign programs need to be re-examined. There are tricks. Just today I was hearing our president talking about decentralization. This has become a very deceitful little phrase. It has never been fulfilled. Genuinely, what we want is power sharing, not gifts of money or assignments. We want proper power sharing in the Constitution. This separation of us between the central government and the local government. Power sharing between the modern government structures at central and local government level and traditional authorities. They must have power. We need local community power, stewardship of our land and natural resources. These are the issues that will be debated there. And our history tells us that this is what the independence struggle, the African freedom movement, was all about. Land, sovereignty of land, sovereignty of our seeds, sovereignty of our soils, sovereignty over our water, sovereignty over our political system, sovereignty of our development planning. And this power sharing is not possible under the present constitutional regime. And that's why we need a fourth Republican Constitution, which will be a result of a comprehensive review and a radical reconstruction of the Constitution to come up with a brand new people-driven, directly people-driven Constitution with win-win for everybody. That, I think, is the issues, among others, that will be discussed at the national conference.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you very much, and I hope we'll be there at the conference and we'll be your program live, the 2 days. I think we should be there to ensure that Zambians carry along your message, the message of unity. The opposition is not is fragmented, not because people are not trying. I have seen your efforts in attempting to unite them, and you're not the only ones. There are many, many people, of national interest that have tried to unite the opposition. What is dividing the opposition is not that people are not trying. Everyone is trying in their own corner. I would like to thank you, Woaka, for coming to our program, and I hope that you can find time next week to come and tell us how the program went, how you picked a team, and the program you'll have adopted. So thank you very much for spending time on our program. Thank you. God bless you.
Hearing us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Milo Nkavaku Police Headquarters for 9 hours. I've been called there by the police in connection with the statement I made demanding the burial of Edgar. Edgar is not an ordinary citizen, he's our former president, whether we like him or not, whether we like it or not. But his body belongs to his family. He has been lying in the mortuary, frozen in a fridge for 9 months now. Because Hichilema doesn't want his family to bury him, he wants himself to bury Edgar. Edgar, who was not his friend, Edgar, who was not his relative, Edgar, who he was not talking to, who he was at loggerheads with. Why does Hichilema want to bury Edgar himself? Lekom nove ayatushete vuntuvu, batiro mweo wa muntu waba mukutwi. Chiola chintomfwa apulikila mulemba mukutwi. Ichi kutirwe tachumfwe ndivu. Leka banove bachitefi walefwa ya, it can't be your way all the time. Pa constitution is your way, only everything is your way. Tefyo biekala muchalo. This country is not going to be a good place for any of us to live in, if it's not a good place for all of us to live in. Weshyo mutima mulumendo.
Hakainde Hichilema nkalapo na chifundo pa mutima. Kwato mutima uwa muntu, uwa muntu. Leko munove ayatushe. Yala kwana 9 months. Ichitumbi chakwa Edgar Lungu chichiri ku fridge. Ichi chimono kukake ichitumbi. Watwale ichitumbi cha munove ku prison for 9 months. Wakwato mutima washani. Nangu kukoso mutima te ifyo. Release that body so that Edgar's family can bury their loved one. Be a human being. Your actions are human. Edgar is not buried today because of you wanting his body. That's all.
Why do you want it for?
Why do you want Edgar's body that much for 9 months? Almost 9 months now. Your friend can't be buried because you are saying, no, I have to have the body. I have to bury Edgar's body the way I want. Chitumbi chobe. Do you want to eat that body? Is it your body? Is Edgar your relative? Is he your friend? Let him be buried. Kwato luse. Look at the way the family is suffering for 9 months. Bali mu funeral, bali mu mourning. Let them have a closure. Nangu kubipo mutima te ifi mumendo. Wesho mutima kwata ko luse. Imingalato te palifyondi. You can't have imingalato on everything. And what is imingalato? Ubu change shwankoko. Let Edgar's family bury the
lesale bana iwe boss ba SDA turekupepelako Takateka, we are with you.
Sorry. What?
Thank you, dear viewers. We're hosting Prince Akashambatwa Mbikusta Lewanika with their initiative to have a conference for the opposition, the one they are calling National Conference on Democracy and Development, and they've invited all opposition, all members of the opposition, the civil society and others to help them set up a team, adopt programs, and if possible, pick a team with a flag bearer. The conference is taking place on 6th and 7th, just this weekend. You can get in touch with Akashambatwa and the team and you can check for the details on the flyers that they've distributed, including the online flyers. On Wednesday, our program on EMV is back. Remember, we've been running an opinion poll. The two opinion polls were shared by Makebi Zulu and Harry Kalaba. They were the front runners. Today we picked the top four, who we will now go head to head with President Hakainde Hichilema. The rules are very simple. You call us and tell us who your preferred candidate is. If we went to elections today, who do you think can win an election? If we went to an election today, who do you think can win an election? So, President Hakainde Hichilema is included as the incumbent, and these four are the challengers who were top four on EMV opinion poll that we ran. On Wednesday, this will be a 3-hour opinion poll. Will carry your views live, and for those that will be voting, you vote online on the threads that you'll be watching on, and you'll be able to call the two lines. So we have a big one on Wednesday, 4th March, time 20 hours. It will be a 3-hour marathon to get to you as Zambians. Who do you think can win an election if we went to elections today? If we went to elections on Wednesday, who do you think can win that election? You have your own parameters, qualities, and all the things that you want in a leader. Can he form a team? Can he emancipate this country? Those are the questions you have. Can he create jobs? Can he bring sectoral changes? Who do you think, if we went to an election, can you vote for, can win? That will be our big program on Wednesday, 4th March. Time, 20 hours on the dot, and we immediately begin voting. You'll be voting through the thread, and you'll be voting by calling the two numbers that we've listed. Look forward to that opinion poll. It will be the finale to the opinion polls that we've been doing. We've done 3 polls. There have been criticism, there have been accusations, but at the heart of it is you and your candidate. You speak for your candidate. The process is free, transparent. You may not agree with it, but that's a process we've taken. Type in the threads. No one can stop you. No, we've been blocked. How can you be blocked on X, on YouTube? How can you be blocked on the various pages that carry our broadcast? About 15 of them total. You mean you are blocked on all those? Come on. Emmanuel Mwamba's 2 pages. You can, and then we are on TikTok. We are on YouTube. You can vote wherever you'll be watching the broadcast from. Who do you think can win the election if we went to an election today? If we go to election on Wednesday, that will be our program on Wednesday, and we'll be hearing from you. Zambia decides. We have the finale. The top 4 that emerged from EMV will face off President Hakainde Hichilema. Who do you think can win elections? And what will this opinion givers who bring experts later to come and analyze the results of the 3 opinion polls. That's where we are. And for members of the opposition, find time to see our dear brother Fred Membe has been locked up at Chilenje police station. Let's rise in solidarity. This is an abuse of the law. He only spoke for the release of the late president. He just spoke for the release of the president. He committed no offense. He should be released and released immediately. So see you on Wednesday. Tomorrow I will rest because the program on Wednesday, God willing, will be a 3-hour finale. 3-hour finale. Last opinion poll, the first one was 3 hours, the second one was 2 hours. This one, because of the candidates involved, and we've involved the incumbent president who's defending his poll, who's defending his seat, we think that we should give it 3 hours. So for you Zambians, let's participate. Let's meet on this page on Wednesday, 20 hours local time. God bless you and shalom, shalom.
Now, Zambian President Edgar Lungu says corruption in his country is being politicized and that he is working to improve the country's legal framework. Here is part 2 of a conversation the president had with VOA's Peter Clotty in New York.
So, Mr. President, one of the promises you made to Zambians is to root out corruption. How would you rate yourself in the fight against graft in the Republic of Zambia?
Well, you rate me after, because for Zambia, unfortunately, the fight against corruption has been politicized. It's become a special vehicle for those who seek political office to make their friends look very ugly. I have given latitude to the institutions mandated by law to investigate, prosecute, and bring to an end or reduce corruption. I have not tampered with them. I have not called them to my office to say, can you target that man because he's a threat to my political life and so on. I think on that score, I have given them space. And I've lobbied for funding for them from cooperating partners. I've lobbied, they've been given training programs. And I think apart from that, if you give me evidence that this one has gone astray, he's on the wrong side of the law, I'll work on him. But I can give you examples of people who have used it in the past to say, oh, XY is corrupt, can you deal with him? And I want to cite one example of a minister who I relieved of his appointment because he was ready to be corrupt. What happened is they gave me the information, the Financial Intelligence Center gave me the information, and I think other wings of government gave me information that XY, your minister, is guilty of corrupt practices. I said, oh, well, probe him. And that's what I'm supposed to do. And they probed this guy. And along the way, the guy said, you can't probe me, I'm a minister. And he kicked these guys in their backs. They came crying. You know, they said, look, that minister is bullying us. In short, he's not cooperating. I relieved that minister. And when I relieved the appointment of that minister, he became a crusader, alleging corruption against his colleagues. Why? Because the institution which was supposed to take him to court and prove the case did not do so. And the politicians also ganged up with this minister, former minister, and said, no, the government is corrupt. So you see, I think that by giving ground and space without interfering with the institutions mandated to investigate corruption, I've done very well. And I've challenged people that if the institutions are not working because of the legal framework being inadequate, let me know how we can follow through so that we give them the power and the teeth. That's what you do. Because I cannot be president and be responsible for investigating and prosecuting. I can't, because that's not what the law says.
We want change! We want change! We want change! We want change! We want a change!
The sound magician. Wi-Fi on the beat, boy.
But you know
mukesa tupangira kwemisebo wali mipele nevoti ati mukesa tupangira kwemisebo nimwewo mwatile mukesa tukulira nechipatala ifwe nimwewo mwatile mukesa tukulira na masukulu kuno ukutulapo twamisalira ifwe mwalitula baona lebo imisebwala yalyonaika ichipatala takwaba kuno abana besu basambilira mufimu chifyamango bana mayo mapapira mungande chipatala takwaba kuno imisepila chose mbalofwa bapepa byebange fama lelilo mufunda tawafika nembuto tashafika ukutulapo twamisalira ifwe mwalitula baona lebo nomba lelo mwabwela imwe mulefwa yatumivotere twakupele voti ngata wabomba tatwakupele voti ngata wabomba tawalimone voti ngata wabomba tawalimone voti ngata wabomba pantuno mwaka kuya bebele twanakanемwe mwachilamo bufi kuya bebele takwabulele numa kuya bebele mwachilamo bufi uno mwaka tulefa yabakutubombera notya bakwisa kuno mukuzembereka mukutwibira mano nga twabavotera abaya nangu mwatupele ndalama tulepo katatwa mivotere nidonti kubeba wapoka walya nidonti kubeba wapoka walya ababina chimwe na mwekole uko bafuma balilaba bayikutapiza balaboko bafuma bayikutapai balabati bakabwela balya chikinine na mabanu inapana kaso wala onalebo mulabeja ukutulapo twamisalira ifwe walitula baonalebo nomba lelo mwabwela imwe mulefwa yatumivotere twakupele voti ngata wabomba twakupele voti ngata wabomba tawalimone voti ngata wabomba tawalimone voti ngata wabomba pantuno mwaka kuya bebele twanakanемwe mwachilamo bufi kuya bebele takwabulele numa kuya bebele mwachilamo bufi pantuno mwaka kuya bebele twanakanемwe mwachilamo bufi kuya bebele takwabulele numa kuya bebele mwachilamo bufi pantuno mwaka
kwenyu ndemwe chabe mabanja onanjala mkomo ndalama zonse mutumbalano masukwa kuchuluka pa mutupatu. Time is up kwenyu not enough. Time is up for your lies and bluff. Time is up kwenyu not enough. Time is up for your lies and bluff. Kani zanu ndizo panda pindu anakulira miseu mwatu tikufuna chilengedwe chatsopano osati mapocket anu opindika ndalama. Listen to the cries, they're louder than your lies. You can't silence the truth. It's time for the youth. Time is up when you is not enough. Time is up for your lies and bluff. Time is up when you is not enough. Time is up for your lies and bluff. We rise, we stand, we fight together for the children, for a better forever. Tabano. We take the rain. Tikonza jiko.